we actually didn't start celebrating New Year's Day and enjoying the holiday until very recent years. Many of these myths are actually connected to one central theme: astronomy and calendar. But Chinese traditional calendar is actually not purely lunar. Hi there, Ziola here. Welcome back to my channel. Happy New Year to you all! Today is New Year's Eve, the start of a brand new year on the modern calendar. But for most people in China, the real feeling of a new beginning still comes from the lunar calendar. Yes, we actually didn't start celebrating New Year's Day and enjoying the holiday until very recent years. When we talk about going back home for the new year, the family reunion, the tradition, and the excitement, we were really talking about the Lunar New Year. So on this first day of the year, let's make a moment to explore the stories and legends behind the lunar calendar and why it has stayed in our lives for thousands of years. Just like ancient Greece, China also has its own mythology. Stories like Kuafu chasing the sun, Hou Yi shooting down the 9 suns, Nüwa mending the sky, or Chang'e flying to the moon. But don't worry, we're going to talk about them in future episodes. When I was a kid, I always wondered, how could someone possibly chase the sun or run all the way to the moon? But later I realized something. Many of these myths are actually connected to one central theme: astronomy and calendar. These stories weren't just fairy tales. They were ancient people's way of understanding the sky, the season, and the rhythm of time. You could say that astronomy and the calendar system have always been one of the main threads running through Chinese civilization. The development of our calendar is closely tied to the development of our entire culture. In traditional Chinese astronomy, there are 3 major reference systems: the system based on the sun, on the moon, and on the stars. These 3 systems correspond to the 3 rhythms that we are now using today: the year, the month, and the date. As we all know that Earth orbits around the sun and the moon orbits around the Earth, and the Earth spins on its own axis. Think of them like 3 hands of giant cosmic clock. But unlike the regular clock, these hands don't move in neat, perfect numbers. Their naturally cycled don't fit into the simple based on 10 or base 12 system. So astronomers had to define their own standards. A solar year is 1 full cycle of the Earth around the sun, and a lunar month is 1 full cycle of the moon around the Earth. So a pure lunar calendar is based on the moon cycle, and a pure solar calendar is based on the sun cycle, which is what most countries use today, known as the Gregorian calendar. But Chinese traditional calendar, what we are now called Nongli, or the lunar calendar, is actually not purely lunar. It accounts for both moon cycle and sun cycle. So more accurate name should be lunisolar calendar, a calendar that listens to both the moon in the sky and the sun on the horizon. In Chinese mythology, there's a saying that the earliest 2 tribes helped to create the foundation of our traditional calendar. Among them was a man from the Yanhuang tribe named Shen Nong, also known as the divine farmer. After Shen Nong introduced agriculture, people living between the Yellow River and Yangtze River gradually shift from gathering food to farm the land. And once the people depending on the crops, they needed something essential, a reliable calendar. After all, everything in agriculture depends on the sun, right? So it was only natural that they create a calendar based on the sunlight and the shadow. The method was beautiful and simple. As most legends said that they place a tall pole on the ground and record the length of the shadow each day. Over a year, they noticed that the shortest shadow and the longest shadow, the sun's highest and lowest point. Then they divided the cycle into 10 equal parts, forming the 10 months. And from that system came the 10 heavenly stems we still use today. 甲乙丙丁戊乙庚辛 and so on. A small pull in the ground, the movement of the sun, and suddenly, the earliest structure of the Chinese calendar was born. As the two ancient tribes grew larger and stronger, tensions between them kept rising. Eventually, a great war broke out. When the Yanhuang tribe defeated the other tribe to unify the land, they finally get a chance to create a proper calendar. As the tribe grew and the territory expanded, watching the moon became the simplest and most practical way to track time. Its phases were clear, easy to observe, and followed by a steady rhythm. At the same time, the sun still plays an important role because its light and the length of the shadow reflects the changing of seasons. With both patterns in mind, the old 10-month calendar no longer fits into people's need. So the emperor introduced a new 12-month system that combines both solar and lunar that was called the lunisolar calendar. And here's how it works. Every year, on the winter solstice, and all the clans will gather together, the astronomer will climb the observation platform, study the stars, and declare the starting point of the new year. After that, everyone went back to their own region, living, farming, and counting months. When nearly 12 months had passed, they will return once again to confirm the next year's beginning. Just like that, the earliest forms of Chinese lunisolar calendar slowly took shape, built from the sun, the moon, and the ancient people who watched the sky. When we talk about Chinese mythology, most Chinese kids know the stories like Kuafu chasing the sun, Hou Yi shooting down the sun, Nüwa mending the sky, or Chang'e flying to the moon. But as fantastical as they sound, most of these tales can actually be understood as poetic reflection of how our ancestors observed the sky and slowly created early foundation of the calendar. Take Kuafu, for example. In the myth, he chases the sun across the sky until he collapsed from exhaustion. But you can also imagine him as an early observer, someone who spent his whole life watching sunrise and sunset, recording the sun's movement day after day. His chase wasn't a sprint. It was a long, difficult work of building the earliest solar observation. And then we have Hou Yi. The story says that he shot down 9 suns and leaving only just one. But in reality, different tribes once followed different calendar system. And for farming communities, this caused much chaos. No one knew exactly when to plant or when to harvest. So a wise leader unified these scattered ideas into a calendar, a clearer and more reliable one. And so the legend says he shot down the extra suns, but leaving behind only a single shared system for all. And Nüwa's story comes next. Just like the sky in the story had cracks, the early calendars still had flaws. And so another brilliant mind refined, corrected, and strengthened the system. Those 5 colored stones she used to patch the heavens, you can think of them as adjustments needed to fix to imperfect the calendar. And finally, Chang'e, though we picture her rising towards the moon with a swirl of light. Her legend can also be understood as the moment someone focused on the moon cycle, matching the rhythm of the lunar phases with the structure of the solar calendar. Her flight to the moon becomes a symbol of bringing lunar and solar measurements together, which eventually gave birth to the lunisolar calendar, the foundation of the Chinese lunar calendar we still use today. Across thousands of years, ideas like these continue to evolve, passing from one generation to the next, until they became the traditional lunar calendar that still marks the season, festival, and rhythm of life in people's life in China. Today, we follow the modern Gregorian calendar for everyday use, but in our hearts, Nongli still plays a big part in our life. For example, many of my friends get to celebrate 2 birthdays each year from each calendar. One is the Gregorian calendar and the other one is the Chinese lunisolar calendar. And for me, I usually celebrate my Gregorian calendar birthday with my friends and my lunisolar calendar birthday with my family. So that's our little journey through the Chinese lunar calendar, where it came from, why does it matter, and how it quietly shaped the way we see today. And guess what? The Lunar New Year is just around the corner. When it gets here, I'll be right back with some more stories about the Spring Festival itself and all the fun and myths and little traditions in our family. That makes the holiday what it is. I'm Ziola, wishing you a Happy New Year. See you next time. Hi there, Ziola here. Do you ever find yourself missing those childhood stories as a teen or young adult? Some of them felt very scary when you first heard them, and some seemed pretty strange once you look back on them later. Before I moved to the US, I was already super familiar with Greek mythology, Bible stories, and a lot of classic Western fairy tales. But after I got here, I realized that most people around me had never even heard about the old myths or the stories of China. Some of my friends might know a bit about Japanese tales because of the anime they're watching, but Chinese tales, almost no one. That's why I'm starting this channel, to share some of the amazing stories I had grown up with. Some were told to me by my grandmother, and others came from this classic book, Liao Zhai, which literally translates to Tales Told at the Dinner Table. Anyway, I hope you enjoy these stories. Drop a comment to let me know what you think, and don't forget to subscribe.